When you have great coaches.
We have a chance to be one hell of a big story this year, man, if we put our heart and soul into this football thing.
Then after you have great coaches, you get great players.
Jacobs slips out of a tackle, and the rookie's taken off. Takes Chiefs with him all the way down to the 30.
You have a great organization.
It's easy to kind of spend money in free agency or draft players, but the hard part is developing a team.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
Hard, quick pass on the slant, complete for a lot of yardage. Hunter Renfrow off to the races.
And you tell them one thing. Just win, baby.
Today, Las Vegas officially becomes our nation's capital.
Welcome to WWJD. I'm Joe Arrigo for FranchiseSportsMedia.com. Join the franchise. We are your home for Las Vegas sports. This is the Monday version of our mock draft. With me today is one of our Raider reporters. He's like our version of Daniel Jeremiah, you know, our way of doing things. Chris Sproule. What's going on with you, brother?
Hey, what's up? That's high regard. I like that. So I'm excited to do this. This is probably the first time I've ever done a mock draft like this, so it'll be fun.
I know, I'm excited too. And it's the fact that we're able to knock this out. And we'll do one today, and then we'll have one that we'll release the day of the NFL draft on Thursday. So we're just about 5 days away, 4 or 5 days away, depending on when you get there. So we're going to get into it. This is a draft. We're just going to alternate picks. There's not going to be any type of trading back and forth, but there will be dialogue between Chris and myself with each pick. Just for full disclosure, I'm using the rankings that I have for all the position groups. I don't know, Chris, what are you using for your own rankings?
I'm going to go off the top of my dome. I've got the draft order in front of me, and I am going to draft what I think is going to happen. Maybe not necessarily what others might think that's going to happen.
And that's the whole point of it, you know, for us to do something like this, where we're going to, as we're a general manager for 16 teams each, and we make the choices that we feel that team needs. And you know, I know they're in the draft coming up on Thursday. There's going to be I think there's going to be some movement trade wise. I could see a couple teams moving up. I think Justin Herbert is going to be kind of a name, as we've seen, you know, as the weekend progressed, that he's a hot name. It's getting to be a hotter name coming out. A good friend of mine, Gilbert Manzano from the Orange County Register. He used to work with the Las Vegas Review-Journal and covered UNLV a little bit. He talked to UNLV head coach Marcus Arroyo, who is Justin Herbert's former offensive coordinator at Oregon. And Marcus was emphatic about Justin Herbert's leadership abilities. And he's told me that too, in talking with me just about UNLV stuff in Herbert and whatnot. So for us to be able to have that kind of resource with Marcus, I'm going to talk to Marcus this week a little bit about Justin. You know, but that's a hot name. So you could have a team like the Chargers trying to move up to 3 from 6, Chris, where, I mean, they may want to jump ahead of the Dolphins, who reportedly like Herbert more than Tua right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, just, you know, trades are gonna happen during this first round and other rounds in the draft. We're not including trades. And as soon as a trade happens, it could shake up the whole draft completely. So just keep that in mind. Absolutely right. I mean, once that first trade goes down, things are going to change dramatically, I have a feeling.
One of the things that I'm excited about for our draft coverage, which we'll have Nyshawn Zaragoza hosting with you and myself, breaking down kind of like Mellon and McShay, except I don't think either one of us want to be McShay. No.
I was going to say, which one are you?
Well, I'm older, so I'll take Uncle Mel, you know. But we'll have our version of that, and or Mayock and Daniel Jeremiah from a couple years ago when they were on.
You could be Mayock, I'll be DJ.
Okay, I'll take that, and we'll have TQ and Raider Knight on as well. Then we have former college coach, a good friend of mine, Bo Warpel, will be coming on and breaking down the first 2 days some of the players that get drafted. And lastly, your boy Q is going to be on throughout the draft with us as well. And then we have some special guests that we're locking in, former and current players that are in the NFL. So we got everything in store. It's a big weekend for all NFL fans, for you draft nicks out there. Just lock into franchisesportsmedia.com/live, or go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube page. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Facebook, which will all have links to to our coverage of the NFL draft, and that also includes Instagram. So without further ado, Chris, you are first on the board in the semi-final pre-franchise mock draft. You have all the odd picks. I have the even picks. Cincinnati's on the clock. It's your pick, and let's go with who you got.
Yeah, so I got odds. So we're starting off with Cincinnati, and I think this is pretty much a foregone conclusion. It is going to be Joe Burrow out of Ohio State. He's an Ohio native, so he's going to get to go back home. After leaving Ohio State, going to LSU and becoming a Heisman Trophy winner, he's everything that you're looking for in a quarterback. He's accurate. He's got a little bit of mobility to him. And when I say mobility, he's really able to move in the pocket really well. And then this year is probably one of the finer years we've seen out of a quarterback in college football. So I think it's an easy decision, and I don't think there's any drama here with the first pick. The Cincinnati Bengals take Joe Burrow.
I would agree with that. And what I like about Burrow is he is mobile enough to get out the pocket and elude. Look at the national title game. He ran for like 28 yards, which led up to the touchdown right before halftime, which again, then they came out and scored again, which gave him a 21-point lead versus a 14 or a 7-point lead. And I'm going to say a name that I'm not saying he's comparable to, but there's traits of his game that I see that are very similar, and that's Aaron Rodgers, actually.
Yeah.
With his high accuracy, the way he threads the needle with the ball, and the way that he's able to continue to keep plays on his feet, keep plays alive with his feet. I think he's the cleanest prospect for me at the quarterback position in a few years, to be honest with you. I love the pick. I think he's a dude.
Yeah, and I think what stands out too is he sees things before they're happening. His field vision is through the roof, and for a quarterback, that's really important to be able to diagnose the defense quickly and get the ball to where it needs to be. I think if you look at Cincinnati, their offense really is not that terrible. They've got players that they can build around. So I think he's actually going to a good spot, and hopefully he can prosper in the AFC North.
Yeah, especially with all those defenses there.
Right.
Speaking of defenses, the Washington Redskins are on the clock, and I was going to save this for the draft, but I'll say it on here. I went and watched earlier today I went back and watched a lot of film, and I went back and I just wanted to rewatch Chase Young from Ohio State, who he's a freak. And watching his tape just reminded me how damn good he is. I mean, and I would go as far as saying that I really believe that there should be talk in the Bengals front office about whether or not they draft Chase Young. I think he could be a generational pass rusher. He has great burst. He's a freak athletically, and I like his character. And that's something that you're going to hear a lot about guys in this draft is their character across the board, whether it's good or bad. I like his character, but he's just a dude on the field. And I think I talked to you when we were talking privately last week. I said, one of my concerns is, I don't know if it was you or TQ, that like he's a finesse pass rusher. He just relies on speed rush a lot. I went back and watched him, and he's not that. Like the dude's got some power moves, violent hands. Chase Young at the number 2 pick, it should be as much of a no-brainer as Joe Burrow to the Bengals at number 1.
Yeah, no doubt. And he goes to Washington, who's got Jack Del Rio leading the defense now, who's proven to be a good defensive coordinator actually when, he gets his chance. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right about Chase Young. I mean, dude's a beast. The two most important positions are guys that can get after the quarterback and the quarterback. And I agree with you. I think that Chase Young is probably the best player in the draft. But, the priority of a quarterback just comes before a pass rusher. But, I mean, dude is going to be a double-digit sack guy every year, absolute beast. And if you look at that Washington Redskins defensive line, I mean, they're stacked. And if you saw what the Niners did with their defensive line, that's how you build a defense, getting after that quarterback.
Well, yeah, and I think, too, in Washington's case, you can't take a quarterback at 2. Not when you're a year away, not a year from drafting Dwayne Haskins as high as you did. And I think too, there's a lot of ownership reasons behind that as well. His Dwayne Haskins went to high school with Daniel Snyder's son. He's from that area. The other thing that I find intriguing is Kyle Allen being there, but I wouldn't rule out Cam Newton heading to Washington as well. I could definitely see that. There's a familiarity and a comfort level with Ron Rivera. He knows how to deal with Cam on a one-on-one level as well as in front of a team. And I think that's an important thing, an important thing to look at, because at the end of the day, Cam Newton's a different kind of dude personality-wise. And you have someone that never really had a problem with Cam and did a good job defending him in the last season or two in Carolina.
Yeah, and I think it'll be with Cam, the biggest thing is health, right? Is he healthy? And then the other thing would be, what is he asking for? Is he asking for starting quarterback money, or will he come in on a discount, kind of a prove-it-year type thing? But, I agree with you. I don't think they look at quarterback. I think if Tua were healthy, they may have to consider it. But with the injury concerns, I think you just take the best player on the board and, run with it from there.
All right, well, you're on the clock with number 3. It's Detroit. Now, there is no trades in the Franchise Sports Media mock draft on WWJD. So, all right, you're
I think this is going to be a spot that's going to be a hot spot for a trade. I think those first 2 picks, we can pretty much write those in pen. With Detroit, it's going to be interesting. Do they get an offer from a Miami Dolphins or a Los Angeles Chargers to come up and get that quarterback? Now, with no trades, they just lost or traded Darius Slay, so they have a huge hole at corner that they need to fill. So for the Detroit Lions, I'm going to go Jeff Okudah, who's probably, other than Jalen Ramsey in the last, 5 to 8 years, is probably one of the cleaner corner prospects coming out. And Ohio State really is DB University along with LSU. And I think the world of Okudah. I think he's going to be a number 1 corner that can come in day one and fill a position in need for them.
And I think it's a big need position for Detroit, not just because they lost Slay, because you're in a division where you have Devontae Adams, you have Allen Robinson, you even have Adam Thielen and some of those guys that are around, and you have Aaron Rodgers in that division. I mean, Kirk Cousins to a lesser extent. Chicago's a mess at quarterback and with their offensive genius as a head coach, and I say that tongue in cheek. But with Matt Patricia, and I may be one of the few people here, I really like Patricia. I like what he. I want to give him some time if I'm Detroit. That's been their biggest problem.
Yeah,
they don't give their coaches give them the full 4 or 5 years. Now, I didn't agree with the firing of Caldwell when it happened because I thought he did a fantastic job there, considering all the circumstances that he was under and in terms of being the head coach there. But overall, Okudah could come in, fill a need, be that young corner. That when you said DBU at Ohio State, I looked at you funny because to me it's LSU.
No, I think they're both great, and we could pick and choose which one's best, but they produce some very good defensive backs right now.
There's no doubt about that. So I think at the end of the day, I think even if they trade back, and you mentioned a couple teams, Miami and the Chargers. Look, the Chargers are a team to keep an eye on to move up. I had this debate, and we'll have the debate on Thursday with, I'll have it with TQ, because we kind of did it when we were doing our run through. I think somebody could trade up for Tua, and it could be at this point. It could be Miami trading up to draft Tua. It could be LA jumping up to draft Justin Herbert or whomever. But I think this is the first trade spot, and I think so because, and I'll say this, and I think you and I have talked about this. We maybe talked about it on shows. When it comes to drafting a quarterback, and we can dive into this when it comes to pick 5 and 6. But if you have a divide in your room, it always will go to whoever has the cleaner bill of health between your scouting department and coaches.
Yeah, no doubt. And, in any other year where teams would have been able to get their hands on Tua, maybe at this point we know, okay, yeah, he's good to go. And by every report, it sounds like he's good to go. But without the team and having their doctors be able to get their hands on him, you can't ever be, 100%. And I think more than anything this year, we could see that lead to, in my eyes, a lesser quarterback in Herbert being drafted ahead of Tua. So that's definitely going to be super interesting come draft night.
Now, the Giants are on the clock at pick 4, and something that's interesting to keep in mind is, as a general manager, Dave Gettleman has never traded back or traded up in the draft. So, for me, I take that into consideration, and I do think this may be the first year that he does make a move. Isaiah Simmons is on the board, and to me, he's to me the top player in this draft. I think it's him and Chase Young, and then it's Burrow, and there's a few others. I'm big on Simmons, but right here, considering what the Giants need and how much they believe in Daniel Jones, who they've loved since his days playing high school football down south. I think he was down in Louisiana playing, so he's always been around the Manning shadows. I remember TQ and I were at a Saints game, or no, I take that back. TQ was at the Saints game, and he called me, asked me about this kid named Daniel Jones. And I'm like, he's a high school kid, so, down there. And he goes, man, these people down here love him. Well, Dave Gettleman swears by him. He needs to protect him. That's why my top lineman, Tristan Wirfs, is now off the board. He will be a New York Giant. They need to keep Jones upright. That guy was sacked a ton last year. They got to get him protection so we can get the ball out to some of the weapons that he has, like Ingram as the tight end, and some of the weapons on the outside, and most importantly, open up some holes for Saquon Barkley. So Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle out of Iowa, who reminds me a lot of Brian Bulaga, except more athletic. That's the pick right here at number 4 for the New York Giants for me.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you at all. I think Giants fans are probably going to hate it, because you have that sexy player in Simmons on the board still. But when you draft your franchise quarterback, you have to protect him, and their offensive line has been terrible. You have Saquon Barkley. Do you want to ruin the beginning of his career? By the time his contract's up and you have to pay him, you haven't gotten anything out of him. So while it may not be a sexy pick, it's probably the right pick. And as for Wirfs, Iowa's known for producing offensive linemen, with Kirk Ferentz. So, I totally agree with you. It's not the sexy pick. It's not what a lot of Giants fans are going to be happy with. But I think ultimately at 4, it is going to be an offensive tackle. And I like your pick of Wirfs here.
Okay, so pick 5. This is where I think we're going to start to see the run on quarterback start. But you're picking for the Dolphins right now.
Yeah.
And you have both Tua and Herbert on the board, as well as Isaiah Simmons, Derek Brown, Andrew Thomas, the offensive tackle from Georgia, Mekhi Becton is still available, Jerry Jeudy. It's the Dolphins. I love their young head coach. I like what they're doing down there. 14 picks in this draft. Pick 5, who you got right here, Chris?
Yeah, I know a lot of people wrote him off in the beginning of the year, and it was tank for Tua big time. But I think as the season progressed, you really saw a team start to develop. And I should preface this by saying I am no insider. I have no inside information. So this is not what I would do. But I think this is what will ultimately happen according to all reports. And I'm going to say at 5, they take their quarterback in Justin Herbert out of Oregon.
That's the first somewhat shocker. And this is where I want to get into some of the rankings, because we'll debate this on Thursday night. But with my quarterback evals, I have Burrow number 1, obviously. I have Tua Tagovailoa at number 2, but I have Justin Herbert at number 5. And I still have him going early first. But he's my 5th rated quarterback behind Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love. And I like Hurts more. He's my 3rd rated quarterback, and he kind of jumped up the more I started to watch his film. And with Love, I see more upside than I do with Herbert. And the reason why I say that, I think there's deficiencies in Herbert's game as a passer, and I'm just not I think he can be good. I know he's been coached up by Coach Arroyo. He did a really good job with them, a fantastic job with them. But when you're going into the season as arguably the number 1 overall pick, and then you don't have the type of year that you really should have behind arguably the best offensive line in college football with 4- and 5-star playmakers everywhere, that I have questions. And to be clear, I do not question his leadership skills.
Right.
I've heard nothing but great things with that off the record, but
Right.
I just question him on the field.
And I don't, I've obviously never met him, and I'm always speaking from a fan's perspective, so I can only go off of the interviews and things that I've heard from him. And there's just something that doesn't excite me about him. I can't put something tangible to that. It's just something about him doesn't excite me as a fan. And that maybe nothing, but for me, like you, I have Tua as my second-rated quarterback over Herbert. I think with the quarterback, it's so important in the system you get put into. And so I think if Justin Herbert got put into the right system with the right coach, I think he can be successful. If you look at even like a Kyle Allen or Josh Allen with the Bills, they have similar traits. Josh Allen has a little bit stronger of an arm, but they're both, physical. They're both tall. They can run. So, I think he can be successful in the right system.
So why would you go with Herbert and not Tua? Is it just the medical?
I think So again, I would go Tua if it were up to me.
Well, it
but
is.
I think, I'm just saying when it comes down, I'm thinking like the Miami Dolphins. So right. I'm not taking Herbert over Tua, but I think the Dolphins will. And again, I think it's a lot to do with the injury aspect to it. Can you really gamble on the number 5 overall selection on a quarterback that dislocated his hip and has had various injuries throughout his career, and your offensive line is garbage right now? Do you really want to risk that? So that's what I would think.
Well, I think personally, I agree with you. I would have gone with Tua, and that's why the LA Chargers at 6, this is where they take him. Quite frankly, he's a guy that he's got the intangible factor. The Chargers need to put butts in the seats, and let's be real. He can take some time this year to learn the NFL game behind Tyrod Taylor, who they plan on starting, and he kind of fits it. And there is something to be said about a left-handed quarterback, the way the ball comes off his hand with the reverse spin, and that does kind of, you have to get used to that for your receivers and whatnot. But at the same time, if he's healthy, he has that it factor that a lot of quarterbacks don't have. He wins big games. The games that he lost were to legendary college football teams. And what he did in that half against Georgia in the national championship game was crazy. I was literally texting a good friend of mine whose son plays college football, and is in the same age group as Tua, and has played against him in the Pylon 7-on-7 tournament. And we've known about Tua since then, since he was 14 years old. And he goes at halftime, right before halftime, I actually tweeted out, it's Tua time. And then they put him in. And once they put him in, he called me. He's like, Tua's going to win this game for him. And I didn't disagree. And what I like about him is his quiet confidence, the way he carries himself. But I also think that if he could stay healthy, he's just a special player.
No doubt. And like what I said about Justin Herbert in the interviews that I've watched, how I don't really see a personality jump off the screen. Like Tua is the complete opposite. I feel like every time that you watch him interview, like that personality jumps off the screen. You can just see the leadership that he exudes. And with the guy that, it just seems like is a great dude. Like those are the people you bet on, So like, yeah, he's been injured. But I'm going to bet on the fact that, I think he can come back and be a great quarterback in the league. And, with LA, he doesn't have to start right away. Tyrod's he's a serviceable quarterback, okay? Is he great? Is he going to win you games? Probably not. But he can be that, that stopgap until Tua's fully healthy and understands the playbook, and then you feel good about throwing him out there.
I agree. And I'm not saying Tyrod Taylor is a bad football player. He's just a guy that I think he is a stopgap quarterback.
Yeah, great backup.
Great. You could have him start 1 or 2 games, but you don't want him going all 16 for you.
Right.
And having Anthony Lynn there, who had him in Buffalo, is a huge plus for for him to have him in his corner. But at the same time, I almost had to take a drink there. I almost said it.
Yeah.
The Chargers, they need to make sure they have their guy going forward because they got to put butts in the seats at SoFi.
No doubt.
If they're not able to do that, that's going to be a problem for not just them on the field, but off the field with their owner in the NFL.
Yep.
Speaking of new owners, there's a new owner in Carolina. He has a new head coach, and Matt Rule, 7-year deal. Man, I think he's the second highest paid or third highest paid coach in the NFL. He got, I would say, the best coach available, the hottest name probably available on the market. So the Carolina Panthers are up. They've addressed the quarterback position with, I think, one of the best signings of all free agency in Teddy Bridgewater. There's weapons around them. This is a team that Matt Rule builds his team off defense.
Right.
He likes having athletics. He's got some freaks out there.
Speed
Isaiah Simmons and Derek Brown.
For Matt Rule. You know, if you're gonna, he thinks if you're gonna gamble on traits, and then you could teach him the game afterwards. So, you know, who does that scream to me? That screams Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson. I mean, dude's a freak show, you know. And you lose Kuechly this year to retirement. That defense needs speed on it. And no doubt, to me, Isaiah Simmons is like a can't-miss prospect. I know Raider fans are going to hate me for that, but hoping that he dropped a little bit. But I don't think you can lose taking a guy like that, whether he plays linebacker or safety. I mean, you put him all over the field, and he's going to make your defense better.
I would pick Simmons here. I think they're going to go Derek Brown, to be honest with you. I think they're going to, you know, if you want to build a football team, you build it from the inside out. And you really, I think a lot of times don't start at a linebacker and you don't start at safety. And I think Simmons could be generational.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to go Derek Brown right here. This is just my gut.
And I think positional value will come into play here. I think if you see like what happened a couple of years ago with Derwin James, Minka Fitzpatrick, I think most teams see Isaiah Simmons as a safety, and that positional value may drop him, even though, you know, he's a great football player on the field. You're right. Derek Brown is, you know, just as good. And like you said, you build a defense from the inside out. A team may prioritize that as well. It's hard for me to pass on Simmons.
Oh, it'd be hard for me. I wouldn't pass on him.
Yeah.
That's just me. So let's recap round one so far, the first 7 picks. Chris took Joe Burrow, number 1, to the Cincinnati Bengals. I took Chase Young to Washington. Jeff Okudah to Detroit at 3. Tristan Wirfs to the Giants at 4. This is where we have a couple quarterbacks go 5 and 6, except it's not the order most people project. Yeah. Justin Herbert, 5 to the Dolphins. At number 6 to the Chargers, Tua Tagovailoa. And Chris just picked Isaiah Simmons, number 7 to Carolina, keeping Simmons in the Carolinas. Now at pick 8 is Arizona. And I've been told by people behind the scenes, this is a spot you could really look at the start of the wide receiver run. I know they traded for Nuke Hopkins, and they're going to pay him a boatload of money. I know they have Christian Kirks. They have Keyshawn Johnson. They drafted the other kid out of Iowa State last year.
Plus Isabella, the little white dude.
Yeah, from Miami. That's a hell of a kick and oh no, excuse me, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
from UMass.
Yeah.
But the name CeeDee Lamb and the Cardinals, I keep getting told from people it's a spot where they really like him. They also have needs up front at the offensive line. They got to keep Kyler Murray upright, and they have a need at defensive tackle. With Derek Brown on the board, and you still have Andrew Thomas on the board and Mekhi Becton, this is kind of a tough one. But right here, I'm gonna go Derek Brown, defensive tackle from Auburn. I'm going to go that route because they need to generate a pass rush. And in that division with the 49ers and with Seattle, you have teams that are going to try to pound the ball down your throat. Mm-hmm. And with the Rams, for that matter, the Rams are they went to more 11 personnel last year or 12 personnel. So they did a lot of different things. They changed up their offense mid-season, McVay did. So right here, I think they know they need to make that transition, And in order for them to grow, and with this draft being so deep at offensive tackle, they can get back in the first round if they want to, or they can wait to the second round. There's going to be talented tackles available because it is a very deep draft. Derek Brown is, in terms of defensive tackles, my number one guy, as he is everybody else. And I have him in an area where there's only 3 defensive tackles I think could be really, really studs, and he's one of them.
Yeah.
So to get him right here, I think the Arizona Cardinals will be very happy.
Yeah, I think he's a top 5 player in the draft and a dude that you can build a defense around. He's a mature guy. He has a family of his own already. I think it's a can't miss prospect in Derek Brown. And then going back to your talking about a receiver, I think it would be a huge mistake if Arizona took a receiver at 8. I think they have way too many other needs, both on defense and on the offensive line. When you draft a quarterback like Kyle Murray, you want to protect him. You don't want to get him hurt. And I know he's mobile and he can move around, but I would not take any chances in getting that guy hurt. And this year's draft is so deep at tackle. I think you at 8, with the way that we have it falling right now, I think you take Derek Brown or you take one of those offensive tackles.
I agree 100%, but I went true to my board, and you don't pass up on a player like Brown at that spot. I mean, he's a top 5 guy. He slid a couple spots, but you can get him, or if you can get him and you land him right there, you're going to be your coaches are going to be real happy. And I just think it's a good fit overall. And the thing I like about Brown, you talked about his maturity. The dude wants to get into politics.
Yeah.
When they call him Baby Barack.
Yeah.
That's a nickname at Auburn. So I think that's pretty cool. The fact that this guy is a very studious and smart player, and I think you need that, especially in today's NFL. Now we're going to 9. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they have a bunch of, not only a bunch of picks the next couple of years, but they have a lot of needs. Now they're trying to get rid of everybody. There's some intriguing names on the board. Who are you going with at 9 for the Jags?
I think this is another prime spot that could be open for a trade. One of those teams trying to trade up to get a receiver ahead of the Jets and the Raiders and whatnot. But as it stands, this might be a little bit surprising. But I've got the Jaguars going C.J. Henderson, the corner out of Florida, at number 9. I think he's shooting up draft boards. I think a lot of experts right now think he's going in the top 10. The Jaguars make a lot of sense. They let Jalen Ramsey go last year. They got rid of A.J. Boye. So they have a huge hole in that position. Who's the guy from the Bengals they tried to sign but failed him on a physical? I think it was Kirkpatrick.
Darqueze Dennard.
Dennard. So they've got a huge hole there at corner that needs to be filled. And so I have them at number 9 going C.J. Henderson out of Florida.
I could definitely see that when you trade Jalen Ramsey and Bouye's gone, as you said, you have to. This is a passing league. You have to fill those needs.
And they could go offensive tackle too. That's also a position of need. Some think they may go receiver as well.
Yeah, I could see receiver there as well. I will say I agree that could be a hot spot for a trade back, as will the next pick, Cleveland at 10. Right. But I'll say this. When it comes to Henderson, and I sent an email out today, and I don't know if you got it. I adjusted my cornerback rankings after I got them watching some film earlier. Henderson is my 3rd ranked cornerback. I'll get to my second one a little bit later in this first round. But C.J. Henderson slipped a little bit because he's not a great tackler. He kind of makes a lot of business decisions.
Yeah, he does.
And for me, as someone that coached corners, at the high school level and with my son and other players and trained him for that matter, I don't like that. You got to be able to come up and fill and run support. I mean, or at least be able to show a willingness to.
You don't have to
do that.
You don't have to be, some dude that's going to hit stick everybody all the time, but you got to be at least able to stick your nose in there and stop the guy. When you're dipping your head and it doesn't even look like you have any interest in tackling the dude, that's where you get into trouble.
And it's funny because I was watching something about Deion Sanders a couple of days ago. And Deion's not known to be a tackler.
No.
But make no mistake about it, Deion would come up and bang you when needed. He has some hits on his resume.
And if you're telling me C.J. Henderson can cover like Deion,
different story.
I would take that. So
there's not too many guys I see in today's NFL that can cover like Deion, or even if that's came out since Deion. I can think of maybe 2 or 3. now Cleveland's here at pick 10, and I'm gonna tell you, with Cleveland at pick 10, I look at them as another hot spot to trade down, and that could be a very interesting spot considering you have a team like Denver who does look to be a team that wants to trade up and get a receiver. But I'm not going off any trades because we can't make any trades. So right here, I'm gonna go with another name that is kind of off the board, and to me, I see this because it's coming out that they really like him. I don't know how much of it is smoke. He's actually my 5th rated tackle, and that's Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State to the Cleveland Browns. So Cleveland drafts Cleveland at pick 10. And look, their offensive line was just, I mean, to be real, it was just real shitty. Right. I mean, there's no other way I could put it. Like, it was a horrible offensive line last year. Baker Mayfield was in a world of trouble. And I think you got to get offensive linemen in there right now because you can't have any excuses for Baker Mayfield going forward. Right. You know, I actually like Baker's game coming out. I don't know if I liked him as a number 1 pick, but I liked his game coming out. Just the fact that he was doing some of the things he was doing last year was out of character. He was out of rhythm a lot of the time. Off balance, mechanics were horrible. You know, you got to keep him upright and let him at least step up in the pocket or slide a little bit. Cleveland can do that. I like him. I like the kid from Louisville, Beckham, more than I like Cleveland. But whatever the Browns like him as a scheme fit, that's my pick at pick 10 for
right. And I think what you have to take into consideration here is that the Browns' new head coach was Minnesota's offensive coordinator. He runs that zone offense, the zone blocking scheme, and so when you run that zone blocking scheme, you rely heavily on athletic offensive linemen. And Ezra Cleveland blew the combine away athletically, a lot like Colton Miller, who plays for the Raiders. He's kind of that late riser, super athletic. I think ideally, like he said, that Cleveland would want to trade down from here and not select him at 10, but maybe like in the 20s if they can find somebody that's willing to trade up. But no, I totally agree with you. They need to get that left tackle. They signed the dude from Tennessee as their right tackle this offseason, who's a good player. So, I think that they need to improve that offensive line, especially when you look at their offense and how stacked they are. I mean, they have so much talent on their offense. There's no reason that they shouldn't be one of the best offenses in the league.
They got to. They're explosive everywhere. I mean, running back, outside, even at the tight end position, they have Austin Hooper. I totally agree. So pick 11. The Jets are on the clock, and you're talking about a team that has one of the better young quarterbacks in the NFL.
Right.
He does not have weapons.
Right.
He also has no offensive line, and that team has a whole bunch of needs, but they got a whole lot of money they can spend the next few years. I question their head coach. I don't think he's a guy to lead them. You know, I think
this year it's put up or shut up time. Joe Douglas inherited him. I know they're good friends, but I could see him being out after this year if they don't improve. But I got 11, right?
You got 11. You're on the clock.
All right. So I had 11. I am taking an offensive tackle. Their team is in dire need of offensive linemen to protect that young quarterback. And I am going Jedrick Wills out of Alabama, who I have as the best offensive tackle in the draft. I think he's a huge position of need for them. And if you look at Joe Douglas, he wants to build a team from inside out. So while there are sexy receivers on the board, he is taking that offensive lineman to help protect the quarterback.
He was my number 1 offensive lineman up until the middle of last week when I set out the rankings.
Yeah.
I could see him going as high as 4. Because of his head coach of the Giants, judging relationship with Nick Saban.
Right.
But I stay true to my board. I like him right here, to be honest with you. I think he's a guy. Wills is a guy that just is a big, strong, massive guy. You can even kick him inside the guard if you need to. He's extremely athletic. He's a starter for a number of years at Alabama. I like his game a lot. I think he could fit in real well with the Jets.
I think the Jets would be ecstatic if they had their choice of Jedrick Wills, Becton, or Thomas there. I mean, I think they're worried right now that they may not get any of them. So if they had their choice of one of those 3, I think they'd be ecstatic that, all 3 are there at 11 for them to pick.
right? So now we're at pick 12. It's the Raiders, but we're going to take a 2-minute break and come back and tell you who the Raiders are picking right after this on the WWJD podcast on franchisesportsmedia.com.
Las Vegas. Al's Garage is the perfect location for watching your favorite sporting event, including our UNLV Rebels, Las Vegas Golden Knights, and the brand new Las Vegas Raiders. But you can find your favorite game on most of the time, along with everything you need to make your experience watching it perfect, including awesome service, food, and the best drinks in town.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup.
Al's non-smoking, family-friendly environment is the perfect place for the entire family to enjoy a night out with great food and watching the best games. Al's is your place for large parties, fantasy drafts, work gatherings, or just meeting for the big game. For gaming customers, Al's offers a great voucher program, so make sure to inquire with the staff when you're there. Al's Garage is located at 11760 West Charleston in Summerlin. Tell them the franchise sent you. John Cutter is a neighborhood drinking and dining establishment that tends to parched throats and empty bellies for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and late night noshing. The laid-back atmosphere and awesome food is perfect for getting away from the hustle and bustle of the strip. The menu is short and sweet and does the trick anytime, day or night. The steaks are 100% Angus beef and the fish is flown in fresh. No freezers here, so you can be sure that the meal is made from the freshest ingredients available. From steaks and seafood to sandwiches, wings, and salads, you'll have no quarrel with the food, trust me. And stick around, because the later it gets, the more the place percolates. John Cutter's is located at 11770 West Charleston Boulevard in Summerlin. Tell them the franchise sent you.
Welcome back to the WWJD podcast, NFL Mock Draft Edition with Chris Sproule from Franchise Sports Media, my partner, Chris. All right, so when we took the break, it's the Raiders. They're at pick 12, and it's the best case scenario for them right here.
No doubt.
They have all three wide receivers on the board with Judy, Lamb, and Ruggs. They wanted to go D-tackle. They got Kinlaw there. Jordan Love is still on the board. AJ Esperanza is still on the board. They can go a variety of directions, but I'm going to stay true to my board, and I'm going to stay true to what my board is telling me right here. And I know some people are going to be pissed off that it's not a defensive player, but I'm taking Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver from Alabama. He is, to me, the best receiver in this class. He is the best route runner I've seen come out of the college football level since Marvin Harrison. He reminds me a lot of Harrison, a lot of Antonio Brown. There's a lot of similarities. I think Harrison was a better receiver than Jeudy, but I think Brown's, in terms of like footwork, is a lot, or Judy's foot was a lot like Brown's coming out. So I like the pick right here. The thing that he has to work on, obviously, is his hands. You know, he's got to get his frame a little more add weight to his frame. But his hands sometimes gets caught turning his head a little too soon before the ball gets there, to try to see where he can make a play, which that's all that is. Concentration can be taught, but you can't teach some of the innate skills he has as a wide receiver. So at 12, John Gruden gets his number one guy. Yeah,
I think like he's just such a sick route, route runner, and I think he automatically is going to be that Z receiver. I know Raider fans aren't going to love to hear this. He's a lot like Amari Cooper in his route running ability. But I think he has more of a dog in his personality. And, I think like what you said, he's a little slight. So you get in the NFL system, bulk up just a bit. I think the sky's the limit. And I really don't think you could really go wrong picking any of those receivers in this spot and let them, develop with Derek Carr.
You brought the Amari Cooper comparison up. I don't necessarily agree with that because Cooper now is a really good route runner. There was something about Cooper's game that it just got to a point where it didn't translate.
Yeah, I mean, even coming out of Alabama, people were, when he was getting drafted, people were talking about how great of a route runner he was. But I think what hurt Amari is that it just didn't seem like he wanted it enough. And whether that's fair or not, from a fan's perspective, that's what it looked like on the field. And Jerry Jeudy, it doesn't seem has that.
Well, and the thing is with Cooper is if that's true,
right.
And I agree that it didn't look like he really wanted it as much. There wasn't that passion that you've seen behind it, like with other receivers, like you've seen with a Randy Moss coming out,
right.
Or you've seen with a T.O. or you name today's, even Julio Jones.
I want a little bit of a diva in a receiver, not Antonio Brown diva, but like a little bit of diva that says, you know what, Derek, like I'm not getting the ball, give me the damn ball, and we didn't see any of that. And it's kind of crazy to see him go to Dallas, and then it's almost like he flipped a switch in a sense, where he's out there producing, and it doesn't make sense to me. And even his attitude changed when he went to Dallas. The way that he talked to media and stuff, he was more outspoken, and we never really saw that in Oakland. So,
that's part of my problem. Maybe he just didn't want to be there, so he just didn't try. You know? I don't get that impression with Jeudy. Even the people I spoke to think Judy's that they think that he's a dog and an alpha male,
right?
Like full on dog alpha male that he'll get in that room and in a couple of years leave that room and kind of put everybody on notice. But now that the Raiders have their receiver at pick 12, their former neighbors from the Bay, the NFC champion San Francisco 49ers are on the clock. And you get to draft your second favorite team.
Yeah, right. So, I didn't. So they're sitting at 13 because they traded the defensive tackle there for Buckner to the Colts, which didn't make any sense to me from the Colts' perspective. But, the rich get richer, and now they have the 13th pick, and they're probably going to walk into Henry Ruggs is going to be my selection here at 13. I think you put that type of speed in Kyle Shanahan's offense, and that's scary. I think he is so explosive. You just get the ball in his hands and watch him make plays. I think the sky's the limit for him. I think he's going to have obviously a better NFL career than he did a college career, and I think he had a pretty darn good college career.
I like Ruggs a lot. I like how athletic he is, and I think one of the things for me that is kind of a trip is the biggest knock on Ruggs is people seem to think he's just a speed guy, but he's not, and he doesn't drop a lot of balls. He has 4 drops in his college career. He didn't. He actually has the biggest hands
of the top 3 receivers. He has over 10-inch hands. So
I just seem to think that I personally would hate to see that as him in Kyle Shanahan's scheme.
Yeah.
And this could be a spot too where they trade back and accumulate more picks because I think they really do like Jerry Jeudy. But Ruggs right here for them is a no-brainer. And I agree with the pick 100%. I think it makes a lot of sense. So pick 14 is the Tom Brady Buccaneers. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, you got to pay for that.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, now I do. Tampa Brady?
That.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, they have needs at the offensive tackle, defensive end, and even receiver position. I think they could use another receiver. And looking at this, Andrew Thomas is still on the board.
Becton.
Mekhi Becton, and another guy I really like, Austin Jackson, who's young. But right here, you're looking at a team that needs to keep arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play the game upright. He's a 3-year starter, a 2-time captain of a SEC team that went to a national title game. I'm taking Andrew Thomas, the offensive tackle from Georgia, to Tampa Bay. I think it makes a lot of sense here. You got to keep Tom Brady upright. You got to keep him being able to go out there and complete passes to Jackson on the outside. You got to be able to or Mike Evans, excuse me, I'm thinking of Vincent Jackson, but with Mike Evans on the outside, with Goodwin, with if they keep O.J. Howard with that tight end group they have, and I think they could even go running back here if they wanted to trade back a little bit. I know they signed some people, and they still have Ronald Jones there from USC.
Yeah.
I just tend to think that right here, the offensive tackle makes the most sense for them.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think you have to keep Tom Brady upright, especially when you invest that high amount of money on him. I think what's going to be interesting with Tampa Bay is, the positions that they put around Tom Brady, the players that they put around him. And, from Andrew Thomas's perspective, he, big time starter in the SEC, best conference in college football. And, I've heard several reporters say that Andrew Thomas could actually potentially be the first offensive tackle taken out of the group because he's the safest pick of all of them. You know what you're going to get out of him. So I think if, Tampa Bay were to get their hands on him at pick 14, that'd be huge for them.
Agree 100%. So you keep Brady up, you get a young plug-and-play tackle to do that. And, Bruce Arians has things around his defense that is going to help make that offense work for him, especially with Tom Brady as the trigger man. So your next favorite team, the Denver Broncos, is picking at 15.
In these gifts.
Yeah, man. So who are you taking here?
All right, so at 15, I think Denver really wants Ruggs, right? So I think if he were available, that would be the selection. In our mock so far, he is not available. So do you take the receiver in CeeDee Lamb, or do you go offensive tackle with Mekhi Becton? I'm going to give them Becton because their offensive, their left tackle out of Utah that they spent that first round pick has been god awful. I mean, that dude is a turnstile. I think if you can get a big guy like Becton in there, he's going to create problems. He's very much I'm drawing a blank right now. The Raiders right tackle.
Trent Brown.
Yeah. He's very much in that same size, speed, super athletic for a guy his size. I think he would be a great left tackle for them for the future.
This is where, I probably would have had them taking CeeDee Lamb right here. I know they kind of want a speed guy or Denzel Mims. I could see Mims coming here because, again, he ran well. He's got good size. You put him outside of Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant, and Drew Lock has some weapons to throw to go along with Melvin Gordon as the running back. But I can't see the offensive tackle. Becton is there. He's my second-rated offensive tackle in this draft, and to get him at the 15th spot, that's a good move for them. Halfway through the draft, you get a potential franchise left tackle to play next to Dalton Reisner, who's a hell of a offensive guard. That's something Denver has had when they've been successful. They've had very good offensive lines. So for them to get Becton to go along with Reisner last year, I really like that for the Broncos. Even though I probably would have gone wide receiver right there.
Yeah, it's just what's his name has been a turnstile. Garrett Bowles, that's the guy from Utah that they took in the first round. He's been really, really bad. And again, you have a young quarterback. You need to protect him long term. And it doesn't matter how good your receiving core is if you can't get them the ball. So that's why I go back in there. And again, that's probably what I would do. It doesn't necessarily mean what they would do.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. So now at pick 16, a team that has added Todd Gurley has added I'm drawing a blank, the defensive end, the speed pass rusher.
Oh, Dante Fowler.
The Atlanta Falcons are on the clock, and I'm going to keep them with adding to the defensive line with Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State. He's my number 2 defensive end in this draft. I like a lot of his game. He's a freak. He's very smart, explosive first step. He's kind of raw, but I think as a pass rusher, you have something there, and that's something he's got the frame and the body to continue to grow into. For them, they have to get better on the defensive side of the ball. They have a lot of weapons on the offensive side. I mean, you have Julio Jones, you have Matt Ryan as the trigger man, you have the with Matthews as the offensive tackle, the other receiver, the kid out of Alabama.
Yeah.
You have him. You have weapons there, but you do not have a defense worth the salt of anything. In fact, that defense was so loose. They all probably worked at Magic City on Saturday nights
Yeah.
before games. So I'm gonna go with Yatir Gross-Matos right here for the Atlanta Falcons.
What's crazy too is that as bad as their defense has been, like their head coach is a defensive-minded guy. You'd think they'd be better. Gross-Matos, he's like he's super athletic and he's young. If anybody is interested in, they should look into his story. It's pretty crazy. You know, his young brother died from a lightning when he was real young, and then his dad died right after that. It's a pretty crazy story. So you want to see guys like that succeed. And you have them taking Gross-Matos. I probably would have gone Chase on there out of LSU because the dude just, he bends off the edge. But no, I like that pick for the Falcons.
Yeah, I got Chase in where's he at? Looking at my DNs, he is I have him as an outside linebacker actually.
Yeah. He's kind of that tweener.
He is, and he is my third outside linebacker, but he's still in that range where he's right behind Patrick Queen to me. So, but I just went with the guy I thought that would fit what they like to do. I mean, look, he fits what Quinn likes to do defensively, who comes from the Pete Carroll tree. He likes freaks like that. So I went that route. But now you're up with the Dallas Cowboys at 17.
Yeah, mine's easy because I'm kind of surprised that he's still here. I'm going to go Javon Kinlaw to the Dallas Cowboys, defensive tackle. Dude's a beast. I mean, I think he's really very closely rated to Derek Brown, a guy that went to junior college and then South Carolina and has been kind of a freak show for them. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that's a better NFL player than he was a college player. And if you give him the ability to grow and in that defense, he's going to be a stout player for them for years to come. So I really like Kinlaw, and I think being able to get him at 17 is a big get for Dallas.
I agree. He's a guy that I know that the Falcons liked a little bit. I know there's a couple other teams drafting a little higher. They kind of like him a little bit. But there's also some people that I've talked to that they kind of soured on him, and they think that they don't like the mentality. There's certain things about him that they're just not fans of. Yeah. So at this point, I'm not sold on him right here. But I do think that he fits what Dallas likes to do, and they do have some holes to fill in terms of
they lost a lot of players.
Yeah, when you lost my guy Malik Collins, to the Raiders, and then that hurts them. So I would agree with that. So now we're at the Dolphins' next pick at pick 18, and you got them their quarterback at pick 5. At pick 5, excuse me. So now I'm here and I'm looking, and they could go offensive tackle here, and Austin Jackson would make some sense. They could go with a playmaker at receiver. Denzel Mims would make some sense right here. A running back, my number one running back is Jonathan Taylor. He's still available. But you drafted your quarterback, and he's somewhat mobile. And we're going to stay in the Pac-12. We're going to take a young offensive tackle, Austin Jackson, who's 20 years old currently. He also, this season, prior to the start of the season, didn't have any type of training before fall camp because he gave some bone marrow to his sister. So he didn't get in shape till midway through the year, so he kind of struggled early on. But he's so athletically gifted. He's a freak. He's strong. He got better as the year went on. He's a guy that from the middle of the first round to the back end could be a guy you get and you have some time to build him up, get with your strength and conditioning coach. He's a guy that could really be a franchise caliber offensive tackle. And if you draft Herbert at 5, you got to have your guy to keep him up.
Yeah.
And you can get him right there. In fact, this leaves what I was going to say at 5 when you took Herbert. I may be of the light where I take the best offensive tackle there that's available and then take Jordan Love at this spot.
That's probably what I would do too. And I know I've talked to you about that. I would almost rather take, whether it's the tackle or just the best player available, in the draft early and then come back and get your quarterback at 18. But Austin Jackson, like you said, he donated that bone marrow early, and he never really had that offseason to get right. But, he's a young developmental offensive tackle that's super athletic, and he'll come in and automatically be one of their best offensive linemen. But, I mean, with everything shaking out the way that we have it, the unbelievable has happened.
What, CeeDee Lamb slip?
And now the Raiders are on the clock at 19.
And you have the pick.
Lamb is still available. And I don't know if this is the fanboy in me, but if CeeDee Lamb is available at 19, we're doubling up at receiver. So I'm taking CeeDee Lamb at 19 for the Raiders. Wow. You pair him with Jerry Jeudy, Tyrell Williams, and Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, and Josh Jacobs. Good night.
Wow. I didn't expect that one. I would have gone AJ Terrell right there. He's my number 2 corner. But you know what? If Lamb falls, like the problem with Lamb, and this is something that's kind of came out, is there's rumors that he likes to party a little too much.
Yeah.
And there's also, my biggest knock on him isn't that, because I don't know the kid.
Right.
But what I do know is when I watch film, he's a bully to DBs.
Right.
And that's how he creates a separation. He's not going to be able to do that in the NFL.
Yeah.
So if you're not separating from college DBs right now, what are you going to do against guys that are just as big, just as fast, or faster, and just as strong as you? You're going to have trouble separating unless you become an elite route runner with elite releases. So if he can do that, that's one way. I think he's a lot more like Michael Crabtree than he is DeAndre Hopkins.
And that may not be the worst thing. You know what I mean? So, Derek Carr trusted Crabtree a lot, and he was really productive with Derek Carr. They had a falling out towards the end there. But I think, you want to get a receiving core that complements one another. And so if you have, CeeDee Lamb that can be your chain mover, that's fine. You got Jerry Jeudy, Tyrell Williams that can beat the defense over the top. Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller are going to work the middle of the defense. So, this is almost impossible that this actually shakes out this way. But, we're over here having fun. So, CeeDee Lamb's on the board at 19, and the fanboy in me is taking his ass.
Hey, this is our draft. We can do what we want. But, wow, I didn't expect you to go that route. So, now at 20, the Jaguars are back on the clock, and you took the corner earlier with C.J. Henderson. And I still think they have a need at outside linebacker and someone that's going to be able to rush the passer, because they're in a situation where they're going to potentially have to trade their premier pass rusher. I can never pronounce his last name. Excuse me.
Oh,
so, right.
Ngakwe?
Yeah, Ngakwe.
Yeah, Ngakwe.
Yeah. So, right here, I'm taking one of my best outside linebackers, my third best outside linebacker. This is where I'm going with Chase on.
Yeah.
Chasing out right here. I think he fits what they do, again, on defense, what they want to do. And I just like to fit here with him more so than I do at the other spot. And he's available. Why not take him right there?
Yeah, no, I like Chase on a lot. And I think he's probably the best dude purely off the edge. He's so quick off the edge, and his bend is ridiculous. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's a better, I think he's going to be a better NFL player than he was a college player if he's utilized properly. And then going back to your Ngakoue, I would love if the Raiders traded for an Ngakoue, but the problem is if you trade for Ngakoue, you have to pay Ngakoue, and he's going to command huge money. So, that's probably not going to happen. But no, Chason's a great player, very talented. It would be a good fit in that Jaguars defense.
I agree. So now you're back on the clock, pick 21, the Philadelphia Eagles, and they can go in a variety of directions here.
They need linebacker help, but Joe's favorite player is still on the board. And they need receivers really, really bad. So I am going to give the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz Justin Jefferson out of LSU.
I'm throwing my beer at the table if that happens. For a variety of reasons. He's my favorite he's my personal favorite player. I want him to slide to 30, but this is about where he should go. I have no comment because I'm kind of butthurt right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's a sick route runner. He was used in the slot a lot this year and was ultra productive. I think getting in that system will be able to utilize his talents, and he should be able to flourish with Carson Wentz. And I think that's a great pickup for the Eagles.
I'm not a big Eagles guy. And what I'm about to say, I'll preface what I'm saying. I'm not a big Eagles guy. If Wentz can stay healthy, he's a very, very good quarterback. Elite talent.
Yeah.
But he's yet to stay healthy.
Right.
And they make some just mind-boggling calls. And you're right, they could use a linebacker. I may have gone corner right here, or even safety, because they got rid of Jenkins, outside linebacker, like we said. In that division, they're going to try to outscore people when they can't stop anybody from scoring.
It's such a garbage division, though.
That's true.
It is so garbage.
And that's the part that kind of sucks, is because it is so bad.
But again, it's an NFC East team, so they get talked about like, they're God's gift because it's that East Coast bias. But not a lot of great teams in that NFC East
at all. And now I get to pick for my most favorite team ever, the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah. They got needs everywhere, and they're up against it. And I think about their head coach, and he's a defensive-minded dude. And they let Everson Griffin go. Defensive end is a huge need for them. They're going to try to re-sign Anthony Harris to a huge deal before the draft. If they don't, I could see them moving from him and maybe looking at a safety. I could see them looking at a receiver here, since they let Stephon Diggs, they traded him to Buffalo. And I could even see them looking at a corner right here. But I'm going to go defensive end AJ Esponza from Iowa. You have a guy that can get to the quarterback, one of their premier pass rushers in a defense that relies on pass rushing. He fits well with what Mike Zimmer likes to do in Minnesota. To get him right here, a guy that could go a lot higher. He fits. He's 275 pounds right now. He's my number 3 rated defensive end in this draft. It makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. He definitely fits that system very much like the Raiders. They want their guys, their defensive ends, tall, long arms, maybe a little bit heavier than your rush defensive ends. He's a big physical dude he's just produced at Iowa. This year he started for the first time and was super productive. If you watch that USC Iowa game, he beat up Austin Jackson pretty good. And he can move to defensive tackle on third down. I actually was going to take him next at 23 with the Patriots, but you stole him from me. So I like that pick a lot.
That's payback for stealing Justin Jefferson from Green Bay.
But at 23, I have the Patriots, and this is going to be interesting. The Patriots, obviously losing Tom Brady it's going to be interesting to see what that team looks like without him, what they're going to do at quarterback for the future. They still have an elite defense because they have the greatest defensive coordinator ever as their head coach. So I have them stay in defense. I think they're going to find a replacement for Chung, and I'm going to go Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama at 23.
Makes a ton of sense. He is one of the top 2 safeties. I think him and Delpit are for me the top 2 safeties. I have Delpit slightly ahead of McKinney, but I really like this fit because what Belichick is doing, he probably called Saban.
Yeah.
Because if anything, if anybody's going to give anybody any information, it's going to be Saban giving it to Belichick.
No doubt.
So he could call up, what's this guy like? It makes a ton of sense there at 23. Great fit for the scheme as well.
Yeah, and I think what separates him, especially in this scheme, is that he's really versatile, right? So he can play all over the field, Whereas for Grant Delpit, ideally, I would like to just see him on the back end, playing sideline to sideline. Where McKinney, he can come up in the box, he can drop back, and the Patriots pride themselves on their versatility on defense. So I just think he fits that scheme a little bit better. And again, like you said, the connections to Saban are obviously there. I think he'd be a good fit on that defense.
So at pick 24, it's the Saints, and this is where I could see Jacob Fromm getting picked.
Even over Jordan Love?
Yes, but I'm not going that route right now. But yes, over Jordan Love, because he fits Sean Payton's scheme and what Sean likes to do. He is a lot like Drew Brees, where he doesn't have elite arm strength, but he throws good deep balls. Mm-hmm. He throws a lot of stuff off timing. That's a lot of that offense that they run. He's similar built. I mean, he's obviously taller, highly accurate, high acumen. But the Saints could also use a variety of things besides a quarterback. They could go offensive tackle here. They could go outside linebacker, or they could go corner. And I'm going to go cornerback, and I'm going to stay down in the bayou and give them Christian Fulton out of LSU, my 4th-rated corner in this draft. He fits what they like to do. Good size, good speed. He's pretty physical against the run. He's willing to come up and bang you. He gets out of phase a little bit, but that's something that could be taught. And again, somebody that knows the area, and this is where I kind of knowing the area and whatnot, knowing where that's from. He knows how to deal with Louisiana. Some people may not be able to handle New Orleans. Some people may not be able to handle that. He's played at LSU, played in that stadium before, so it makes a lot of sense for Christian Fulton to become a Saint.
Yeah, and I'm really big on Christian Fulton. I like him a lot. I think he got overshadowed by Stingley, who was the true freshman corner that probably should have won the Thorpe. I mean, he should have won the Thorpe Award this year. Dude, I mean, that dude is locked down. So I think he got overshadowed a lot. But Fulton is a solid corner. I think, that's a player, the Raiders could look at too. Again, in this wacky dream scenario where I had CeeDee Lamb going at 19, it's probably not likely. They're more likely to go a corner there. But, I like Christian Fulton a lot. I think he can come in day one and start. And he's a really solid player. I like that pick a lot.
I would love to see, if this scenario plays out like this, CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy be the pick for the Raiders, and see TQ's expression of what he does.
Oh, yeah. I did that. Yeah. We might trade up and get to him. Who knows, too?
Oh, man. So you're up now at pick 25 with the Minnesota Vikings.
You already had that pick, Epinesa.
Yep.
And they already traded away old boy to the Bills. And I think they really need to upgrade at that receiver position. And so at 25, I'm going to have them go Denzel Mims, the super athletic receiver out of Baylor. Apparently he played with a broken hand this year, which is pretty crazy to think if you're a receiver. All his measurables are through the roof. He's got long arms. He's fast. He's tall. And he run that three cone in like 6.66, which is like really good for a receiver. So I think he's got a ton of potential. He needs to grow a little bit, but I think he can grow in that system, and he'd be a good fit.
6.66, Satan's number going to the Vikings. He's gonna blow up there. Look, I like his game. I actually today went and reevaluated some of the running backs, the rankings, and as I said earlier, and I actually moved T. Higgins ahead of him and into the elite category and slid Mims to 6 and moved Mims to the green category and moved Michael Pittman up to 7 ahead of Jalen Reagor and Brandon Ayuk and whatnot. So my problem, and it goes to my problem with Mims, I don't see him with any release package off the line of scrimmage. And I question his route running.
Yeah.
And he only ran.
Yeah, Baylor has a very limited route tree that they run.
Exactly. So for me, that is a huge question mark. And but him going to Minnesota, I mean, if he's got the size that you would want as a wide receiver, being 6'3", so
super long arms too.
Oh yeah. and he blew up at the combine. I give him credit. So he's not a bad player. It's Minnesota, so I'm gonna be indifferent, you know.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now at 26 with the Dolphins, who took Justin Herbert at 5 and came back and got my guy Austin Jackson from USC at 18. At 26, I'm gonna give them a weapon on offense that they haven't had since Ricky Williams, and that's Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin. I like Jonathan Taylor more than most people. I think he's the best back in the class, and I know people have Swift and a bunch of other guys. I like Taylor because I know what I get with him, and he's a guy, honestly, that knew the weakness of his game, which was, they questioned his pass receiving ability, and he improved that dramatically this year. He doesn't put the ball down on the ground a whole bunch. He ran a 4.3. He's big, he's strong, he's physical, and he's a guy that against Buffalo and against the Jets, he really can be a guy that can control, and New England for that matter, in that cold weather. He knows how to run in that cold weather, and they could feed him the ball in those late season games.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. Dude's a beast. I mean, the only question is he's got a lot of wear and tear on him because he ran the ball a lot at Wisconsin. And then also, with the Raiders, we saw it with why am I drawing a blank? I'm doing a lot today. Josh Jacobs. Okay. So what you have to ask yourself now in today's NFL, are you going to pay a running back in their second contract, right? So is there value there picking a running back in the first round? Now, I think most Raider fans would tell you after watching Josh Jacobs this year, absolutely. If you can have that guy running behind your offensive line for the next 5 years, you take that all day. And Jonathan Taylor's a freak show. So I like that pick a lot. And, what's the quarterback's best friend? It's a good running game,
Absolutely.
So you get a running back like Jonathan Taylor to hand off to, I think that's a good pick.
All right, well, you're up on the clock now with the Seattle USC Hawks.
I think with the Seahawks, you can almost guarantee they're not going to pick here at 27. I think in John Schneider's tenure, I don't think he's ever picked in his actual pick going into the draft. Nope. So whether they trade up or trade down, I don't think they're picking at 27. But, for our sake, we're going to have them picking at 27. I'm going to have them go offensive line, and I'm going to go Joshua Jones out of Houston. I think they always need to protect Wilson, and, he fits a need for them. Their offensive line has always not been a strength of theirs. They've got the weapons outside. Now you just got to protect Wilson. So I'm going Josh Jones out of Houston.
Do you have him as a tackle or a guard?
I got him as a tackle.
See, I have him as a guard. He's my second-rated guard in this draft.
Yeah.
I question his ability to. He's got great skill in terms of
he's still green. He's green.
Yeah, exactly.
He needs to develop. But I think you shoot for a tackle, and you see what you have there. If he can't fit the bill, then you just slide him inside.
So take the Robert Gallery approach.
Exactly. But don't bring that name up around me.
Pick 28 is the Baltimore Ravens, and Baltimore has needs. They could add a receiver, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, guard.
Yep.
And Cesar Ruiz would be a very intriguing pick here. Same with Patrick Queen or Kenneth Murray. But I'm going to go somewhere different because Earl Thomas is on his last legs as a safety, and he's an undersized safety. He's a guy that he makes plays, but again, he's just getting up there in age. And there's a player who I think if he was 3 inches taller, he would be a high first-round pick. High intangible player, great instincts, bloodlines. I'm going Antoine Winfield Jr., the safety from Minnesota, to the Baltimore Ravens at pick 28.
I like him a lot. And, I would not be mad if the Raiders took him if I didn't have Carl Joseph experience, if I hadn't had that. So I'm kind of scarred by that shorter safety. But I absolutely love the dude's tape. and he's got the bloodlines, like you said. Yeah, I think that'd be a great pickup. He could come in, learn from Earl Thomas, and then slide in and eventually replace him. And they're always making great decisions in Baltimore. Their front office is one of the best in the league. So I think that'd be a great pick.
What I like about him, you could play him in the slot, if you want to get him on the field right away. He's my third highest rated safety. I had my three safeties, Delpit, McKinley, and Winfield Jr. all in a red category, which is I believe they should be first rounders with the ability to have a very long and successful career. So he's the final safety in there, even though Delpit is still on the board. But I just think for fit wise, and I don't know, something about that just screams Antoine Winfield Jr. in the Ravens.
Yeah, no doubt. I like that fit a lot. And yeah, he's a good pick for them.
So you're up at pick 29 with the Titans, Chris. Who you taking?
Yeah, they lost their starting right tackle, so they could look at offensive tackle help. But they've also lost a corner, and there's a bunch of really good ones still available. And a guy that I know you're high on, that I'm also high on, who I could definitely see fall to the Raiders, is A.J. Terrell. I think he's a really good player. I think everybody saw what happened in that national championship game where he got kind of abused by Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. But it wasn't like he was out of position. I think he really only got beat on one play. He's a really good, solid cover corner. A lot of people think he has more talent than Trevon Mullen, and he was really good for the Raiders this year. I think if the Titans could get A.J. Terrell, that'd be a really good pickup for them.
You took the guy I was going to take at 30.
Yeah.
So you got me back. He's my second rated corner. And I know you said Okudah. Okudah is a very good corner. Again, best in this class.
Yeah.
I don't have Terrell that far behind him, just looking at the tape. To be very honest with you, going back and watching the last 3 years, it's not that far apart, the disparity.
Yeah.
And he's locked down people. I mean, what happened in the national title game, we've talked about it, where it was one push off and a dime throw, another dime. Yeah, except for the third touchdown where that was just him getting burnt and whatever. I love his game to be 6'2" and change and to run a 4.4, low 4.4, 4.41 or 4.43, whatever it was.
And he was smooth in the drills, turning those hips. Like he's very smooth for a guy his size.
Full disclosure, I could see him going 19 to the Raiders right there.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
But totally. And that's why I said in this, dream scenario where I had CeeDee Lamb still there, I think the more realistic pick, like you said, is maybe an A.J. Terrell.
So if CeeDee Lamb wasn't there, who would you have taken at 19?
Terrell.
Okay. So we're on the same page.
Yeah.
We're on the same page with that. Okay. So now pick 30, and I get the pick for the Packers, and
here comes the homer pick.
And now you took him. Look, here's my thinking, and I'm going to go through different scenarios. Jordan Love is still on the board. I could definitely see them taking him right here, and he sits down for 2 or 3 years. Rodgers is 36. He wants to play till he's 40 or into his 40s. Green Bay would be drafting a quarterback as their quarterback is they'd be over 30 years of quarterback play between two players essentially. So I could see Jordan Love being an option. I also could see them trading back right here, to be very honest, because they can get better value and maybe add another second round pick. And some of these receivers at this point are all kind of bundled up together. Even though T. Higgins is there, that's a very intriguing pick for them, who I have rated higher than Jalen Reagor or KJ Hamler, who I think would be good options. But in this scenario, I'm actually, and I'm tempted to go with Love, but I'm actually going to go with Kenneth Murray, the linebacker from Oklahoma. Green Bay, they let Blake Martinez go because he can't cover and he's not as athletic. He relies a lot on just his film study and whatnot. Murray's a guy that's athletic. Green Bay signed Christian Kirksey, but he's been injured. You have the Smith brothers there, but inside linebacker they have Oren Brooks, who was hurt last year, who they have high hopes for. But if they run in base, it's a 3-4. But they play predominantly in nickel and dime. Murray makes a lot of sense there, and he's a guy that won't have to come in from day one to start because Kirksey's there. But if he's forced to play, you have an athletic linebacker to fit Mike Pettine's defense.
Yeah, and Kenneth Murray is one of my draft crushes. I love the dude. He's that alpha that you want on your defense, sideline to sideline, total leader. And I think a lot of Raider fans had their eyes on him before we added the 2 linebackers in free agency. And I could still see them going linebacker at 19, whether it's a Murray or a Queen. But Murray it seems like he fits that mold of a Mike Mayock or a John Gruden, who's that alpha, who's that team leader. So I think he'd be a great addition for the Green Bay Packers, especially in a division that's so difficult.
Yeah, and now we're at pick 31, and it's the 49ers, and you get to do both. Both 49ers picks.
Yeah, I know. As luck would have it. I had the 49ers at 13. I had them taking Henry Ruggs. And he's obviously a great receiver. I think where they need to improve now is their offensive line, and Cesar Ruiz is still available. So I have them taking Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan. I think he could play center or guard, both positions of need for the 49ers. They need to shore up that offensive line. He fits in that zone scheme too. He's a pretty mobile dude for as big as he is. And I think he'd be a good addition for that team. But again, at 31, they don't have any middle round picks. I don't think they have a 2, 3, 4 round pick. So I could see them here dropping back for a team wanting to pick a Jordan Love or one of the quarterbacks, so you get that 5th-year option. So I think they're definitely a team at 31 that's a candidate to trade down. But if they stay put, I got them taking Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan.
I love Cesar Ruiz. He's my number 1 guard, and I have him as a guard, not a center. And I think he's got all the intangibles that you want to have. He's just the dude. He plays mean and nasty. And the thing I like about him is he played in a power scheme and in a zone scheme.
Right.
He played in a power eye. Then when they went to the spread, he played in a spread scheme as well. So
right.
I like that about him, that he's scheme diverse
No doubt.
for an offensive lineman. So now, Raiders fans, throw up when you hear this. It is now the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. And with the Chiefs, they do have some needs, and one is to free up some salary cap space. But cornerback, even though they re-signed Bashar Breeland, inside linebacker, offensive guard, defensive tackle, and running back. And I think they would really like to have had the opportunity to draft Jonathan Taylor right there. He fits what they like to do.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift is still there. But this, you can still get good value with their running game, and they still have a good group of guys there. But I think they need to get better on the defensive side of the ball. Andy Reid knows it, because you're bringing back everybody offensively.
Right.
And they have the ability to take a chance on a guy who a lot of people really, really like. You and I have talked about him a couple times. He's a guy that if he wasn't injured last year, he broke his foot as it went on. As the season went on, he played really well. But Trayvon Diggs, the brother of Stephon Diggs, he is the final pick in the draft to the Kansas City Chiefs, the corner from Alabama.
Yeah, I like him. Super athletic. Started his career as a receiver, so his ball skills are really good. If you're a defensive back in Nick Saban's defense, you have to be a good player or you're not playing. So he's got all the physical traits that you want. Big, tall, physical, can run. He needs to clean up his technique a bit. But, on that team, he'd be able to sit and develop a little bit. Somebody that I could see them going after, too, would be Patrick Queen to put in the middle of their defense, a rangy linebacker. But, yeah, no, I think Trayvon Diggs is a really good player.
The reason why I didn't choose Queen and the reason why I went with Diggs there is because of the way the AFC West is. Denver's going to spread you out with all those receivers and weapons.
Right.
Same thing with Los Angeles. And I think the Raiders, especially if you take CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy to go with Waller and Williams and Renfro, you're set at the skill positions for the next couple years. That fits. You're going to have to spread them out, and you're going to have a bunch of corners, to get out there with Breeland. And I couldn't tell you the corner's name opposite of Broussard Breeland in Kansas City.
Fuller.
Who?
Fuller. One of the Fuller brothers.
Yeah. Okay. Again, like I said, it's not like I'm a scheme to stop. I'm not going to throw at Fuller.
I think he ended up signing with someone else too. I could be wrong about that, but
so that's my point. Like they had to re-sign Broussard Breeland. They did that. Excuse me?
I think he may have come back. I can't.
Well,
I don't remember.
I thought he agreed to terms like a week and a half ago. Not this past week, but the week before. I may be wrong, but that's what that's what I thought. But looking at everything, I mean, Diggs made the most sense right there for me for the Chiefs. Now, there's some people fans that listen to this probably going to scratch their heads and be like, what the hell are these guys doing?
Right.
What are they talking about? Yeah, I mean, really Ezra Cleveland at 10 or how is Gross Matos falling to 16 or CeeDee Lamb after they draft, Jerry Jeudy, Esponza. Epinesa, Epinesa at 22, like there's no way, or Fulton, or how is Jordan Love not in there, or Trayvon Diggs? Are you kidding me? Like, there's some questions. I get it.
And full disclosure,